true. Not one black person alive today was enslaved in America. That is true. Black people are wanting free stuff. Okay, I don't know. I want free stuff, so I guess white people want free stuff too. Reparations isn't about someone who had been enslaved and now is not enslaved. We had a chance to do that, and we blew it back in the 1880s and 90s. So 40 acres and a mule, for some it was more, for some it was less. 40 acres and a mule is what was promised to those working on plantations. That never happened. Then sharecropping. Then all the Jim Crow. All of those things prevented Black Americans from establishing any kind of generational wealth up and until the Civil Rights Act. Now, we can argue for a really long time that the Civil Rights Act didn't clear everything up. It didn't. But at least it was now illegal to discriminate. So I want you to think about if your family and ancestors had to start at 1964, where you and your family would be today. How would you have paid for college? Would your family have been able to help you with that? Where would you have lived? Reparations is about making up for what wasn't given then, which could have propelled that community into wealth today. We are finally seeing Black Americans with multi-generational wealth starting to emerge, and it's only going to keep on going, and that's great. But what reparations does is it makes up for the fact that you had all these enslaved Americans, and then, okay, you're free, with nothing. Starting from scratch in a system where they weren't even counted as a full human being, where they were limited in what jobs they could have. They didn't have access to Social Security. Now we have Civil Rights Act, 1964. Everyone has equal rights. So imagine if that's where your ancestors were starting. That's why reparations are important. And that's why I think we're remiss now for not taking a serious look at reparations and how we're going to do that. I know people get all hung up on, how do you prove that your ancestors were enslaved? Okay, how about we give low interest mortgages, interest-free mortgages, free college, and maybe that's the free stuff you're talking about. But that will only better our community. So what's the problem? I don't get what the problem is. So educate me.
Somebody asking a question, why should the Black Americans or why should the African Americans be given reparation? And they're arguing from a certain point of view. They're arguing from the point that a single existing African American right now was enslaved, or a single white American right now played part in enslaving the African Americans. They're saying that the people who enslaved the African Americans, or the white Americans who enslaved the African Americans, are all gone by now. They were their ancestors, and they are now all gone by now. And then somebody says, all the African Americans who exist today, they do not need reparations. Why? They do not need reparations because they were not enslaved. Those who were enslaved, they are all gone by now. It is their ancestors who were enslaved, not them. So if it's about reparations, the people who are supposed to be given reparations are all not existing today. And somebody says he doesn't see the reason as to why the African Americans should be given reparations, because not even a single one of them suffered the pain and suffered the the trauma of slavery. Okay, but I want us to have a conversation here, because this should be a conversation of people who have a good thinking. It should be a conversation of people who really know what they are saying and what they are talking about. Okay, I was walking around trying to find an article or trying to find a video that I can be able to use to explain to you why does African Americans need reparation, and why is it that it is important for them to be given reparations, or why is it that it's important for them to actually for them to actually be given reparations. Yeah, why do they need it? They don't need it because they were enslaved, or other because they suffered the consequences, or they suffered the pain of slavery. Because of course I know, me and you, we know very well that the existing African Americans did not suffer the pain of slavery, because they were not the ones who were enslaved. They are not the ones who got or received direct slavery. But remember one thing, if their ancestors would not have been taken to a foreign land, they would not be there today. And maybe they would still be in Africa, pursuing their dreams in Africa, living a better life in Africa, and enjoying the best life they would have enjoyed in Africa. For years, they've been in America and they've gone through difficult times. You enslaving their ancestors and taking them to a foreign land has caused a lot of problems to them. Everything we're talking about, it's because it is as a result of the white Americans and the colonizers enslaving their ancestors. Those back years, those many years ago, okay? And the black community, they really went through a lot of problems. And that time during the transatlantic slave trade caused a lot of things in their lives, caused a lot of problems in their lives. Yeah, these are supposed to be people who would have been far away in terms of life and all that. Look at Africa, how Africa looks like today. Colonization happened in Africa and it pushed Africa years back. It pushed Africa so far. Africa is supposed to be a developed continent, just like other continents. But is it a developed continent right now? It is not. Why? Because slavery and because colonization cost them troubles. It cost them to go back in years. It pushed them back. Where they would have been today, they are not there. When these people came and colonized Africa, they pushed them back. They pushed them so far. Okay? And therefore, Africans and the African countries started building themselves like 10 years back, or let me say 20 years back, when other people were 20 years forward. Okay, so these reparations need to be given to the African Americans who were enslaved, and to be given to Africa, like to those people who went through difficult moments on the hands of the white Americans. Reason being, it is as a compensation of pushing them back in the years and making them start from a very far point, or a very back point, when you were starting at a very front point to an extent. You began now calling yourself the conquerors, the winners, you're clever and all that. You've forgotten that you made them poor, you made them suffer, you made them stay back in the years. And as I was going around, I made a video of Shahid BOLSEN. When you listen to this speech from Shahid BOLSEN, he's explaining exactly what happened to Africa, exactly what happened to African Americans, yeah, that they need to be compensated. If you listen to this video, you're going to know why does African Americans need to be compensated, even though they are not the same people who received direct and slavery. You're going to know why that Africa needs to be compensated, regardless of them not being the one who were existing during the time of colonization in Africa. I want you to take a look and listen to this video. I want you to listen to this video from the beginning to the end. And then as you're listening to this video, prepare your thoughts. Have them shared with me on the comment section, okay? Tell me what you think about it. I'm going to ask you to subscribe this channel if you're watching me maybe for the first time. And for the returning subscribers, I really do appreciate you, okay? Now, prepare your thoughts. Have them shared with me in the comment section about this video that you're about to watch, and then I'll really do appreciate. But until then, let's take a look at the video.
You know, when people talk about a Patrice Lumumba or a Kwame Nkrumah, for example, or Thomas Sankara, or even Sukarno, they always say that they were ahead of their time. But that's not true. They weren't ahead of their time. They were not revolutionary thinkers, if you know what I mean. They were just incredibly astute, mature, sensible men with a very crystal clear understanding about how things should be. There was nothing futuristic or utopian in their visions. They just understood and identified exactly what had been done to Africa and what was being done to Africa. And they understood exactly what liberation and what sovereignty required. You know, if they had been leaders in the West, no one would have called them revolutionary or even visionary. They just would have been regarded as logical, sound, rational, reasonable men who had an intricate understanding of economics and politics and basic fairness. I'm not saying this to slight them, not at all. I'm saying this to emphasize the heinous criminality of the Western power structure and how it has dealt with Africa. Because if you were a leader in Africa in the 1950s, the 1960s, the 70s, or the 80s, and you had a sound mind, a rational mind, you had an understanding of politics and economics, and you had an understanding of what's required for sovereignty and fairness, well, that made you a revolutionary, calling for, pursuing basic fairness and sovereignty and independence for an African leader, saying things and doing things and implementing policies that just made sense for your nation, constituted rebellion. No, they weren't ahead of their time. Time refused to advance. Time was being held back, especially in Africa. The West, Europe, the UK, and America refused to allow Africa to exist in the present day. Not just Africa, of course, all across the global South. But nowhere was this more the case than in Africa. You understand? I pointed out before, more than once, relationships between countries, between continents, evolve and develop and change over time. We've seen drastic changes in international relationships in just the last 20 years. In fact, we've seen drastic changes in just the last 4 or 5 years. You know, even the last 100 days, to be honest. But the West's relationship with Africa has remained essentially the same for 1,000 years. Subjugation and extraction, looting and pillage. So for Lumumba or Nkrumah, it was the 1960s, but for the West, it was still the 1860s, the 1760s, the 1660s. For the West, Africa was frozen in time, and they kept it frozen in time by force. They kept it frozen in time by violence, by assassination, by coups, by invasions, and by hostage governments and collaborators. They kept it frozen in time by predatory lending, by neoliberal policy coercion, by manufactured debt and abusive trade policies. You know, when they can't send soldiers, they send consultants. So no, those great leaders weren't ahead of their time. The West stopped time in Africa. And understand this, when you arrest the forward movement of a people, when you stop them in time like that, you're not just stealing their wealth, you're stealing their future. You're robbing them of possibility. You're burying generations that have not even been born yet under the rubble of your exploitation. Because what could have been created, what could have been discovered, what could have been achieved, it never gets a chance to exist. The mind of a Thomas Sankara, the determination of Patrice Lumumba, the vision of Nkrumah, these weren't anomalies. They're the normal, natural, healthy state of a decolonized mind, of a liberated mind coming from a liberated people. They're examples of what Africa would have been, should have been, and inshallah bi'ithnillah still will be. But the West systematically crushed the conditions necessary even for normalcy to flourish. You see, you don't just kill the leaders when you kill the leaders or when you overthrow the leaders. You steal the future that those leaders could build. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran that when you kill one person unjustly, it's as if you killed all of mankind. Well, that isn't just metaphorically true. In the case of the leaders that the West has destroyed in Africa, they also destroyed millions of lives along with them. Millions of living and unborn lives have been destroyed in terms of their hopes, their opportunities, their rights, their freedom, their independence, their sovereignty. Well, you can trace the carnage going on right now in Congo today. all the way back to the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. They assassinate the idea. They assassinate the man who represents the idea, so that future generations will look back and go, well, you know, they tried and they failed, so we better not bother. It's psychological warfare across time. Because if you can make a people believe that liberation is impossible, if you can make them believe that wanting sovereignty is naive and that dignity is an unrealistic hope, then you don't even have to conquer them anymore. They'll remain conquered inside themselves. And please understand, when we talk about people like Sankara, Nkrumah, Lumumba, Sukarno, we're actually just talking about the natural state of a decolonized mind. We're not talking about something extraordinary. We're talking about what's supposed to be normal, not exceptional, normal. They didn't have utopian visions for their countries. Like I said, they wanted their countries to be normal. But the West would not allow it. And back then, the West had the power to prevent it. The relative power, that's the key point. They had the relative power to prevent it. They had the relative power to steal Africa's future by prolonging its past by force. But as I've talked about many times, the West's relative power is receding. That old wolf still has fangs, but the global South is raising some young lions of their own today. They're reviving the spirit of Lumumba and Sankara and Nkrumah.
It has always not been just about just giving them something or just giving the black Americans what they do not deserve. It only takes people with super-minded and people with a very strong understanding to really know and to really understand why is it that the African Americans deserve reparations. Those ones who are arguing from the point of they are not the ones who received direct and slavery are people who do not know what they're saying, or people who don't really understand. They're not arguing with facts. They're just people who just throw words around regardless of, like, they don't even know what they're talking about. They can't even give their real points from what it really is coming from, okay? And therefore, it only takes those people who have a good and clever understanding, super understanding, for them to know why is it that the African Americans and Africa deserves reparation, okay? After listening to Shahid BOLSEN, it gives you a clear understanding of why the African people and the African Americans need reparations, and reparations must be given to them because they went through troubles, they went through problems, and right now they are really going through difficult moments and difficult times because of what happened to their ancestors a long time ago. You see, a problem was created from way far, not just yesterday, and this problem that was created from way far has been going, following the line until it has gotten at this point. Now, tell me what you think of the comment section. I'll do my best to make sure I read all the comments and give a response where possible. I am the African Streamline, your presenter, and thank you so much for making a stop over to this channel today. Thank you so much for always coming. Thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you so much for walking around and giving me, sending me super thanks, sending me gifts, watching my videos, subscribing to my channel. Like, you're really an amazing family, and I really do appreciate right now. I'm gonna ask you to always coming, always keep supporting me, always keep watching my videos, and don't forget to always leaving a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you have to say about this channel. I will really do appreciate, because I need you to continue doing what I am doing. I tell you every day, Africa is home, and anything that concerns Africa concerns me and you as black people. So as much as Africa is concerned, I am here to speak, and I'll be here to always speak. Until next time, peace be with you. Welcome back again.